G'day and welcome to Cuba to Rio, episode 8. This is our Metropolitan edition, and at the top there we heard some street sellers in Mexico City, followed by some crazy cosmopolitan sounds in Puebla. So sit back, enjoy. This week we've got 2 interviews, 2 very special ones, one with a lovely Swedish girl that I've been travelling with, and the other with a very special guest indeed. Welcome to Puebla, Mexico's historical core. This city of 1.5 million people is host to the continent's tallest church towers. That was the noon bell from the church towers there just earlier. And it's Mexico's historical core because this is where in 1862 the Mexican army defeated the French in the Battle of Cinco de Mayo, that internationally recognized Mexican date. And it also is the birthplace of the 1910 Mexican Revolution, which had sent repercussions through the next half century and even links back to the Cuban Revolution, which is why we are on this trip in the first place. I'm wondering about the house of Aquiles Cerdan, who was one of the primary figures within the Mexican Revolution, which took place from the 18th of November in 1910. And this amazing museum, the Museum of the Revolution here in Puebla, just gives such fantastic context to the world that was Mexico before this revolution took place in 1910. But in 1908, there were just over 15 million Mexicans. There's now 20 million in Mexico City alone. So just over 15 million Mexicans, 60% of whom were illiterate. And they had a life expectancy of just 24 years. And there was really 2 distinct classes here in Mexico. There was the comfortable classes, which lived to, that had a mortality rate of 28 people per 1,000 inhabitants. But if you went to the lower classes, which here in Mexico are called the menesterosos, so essentially the peasantry, that tripled to 62 per 1,000 inhabitants, and 12 of those would die from alcoholism. But the world that Mexico was before the revolution was one that was dominated by a man called Porfirio Diaz, and he had established himself as president from 1876 through to 1911. And early on in his presidency, he modified the constitution on the 21st of October of 1887, Article number 78, which allowed a president to be re-elected multiple times after his term had expired. And so that's how he clung to power for 35 years. And despite the revolution having peaceful beginnings, there was a man called Madero who started a political party called the National Anti-Re-Election Party in the elections of 1910, which were in July. His party was defeated in a unbalanced and unfair election. And that is what led to the characters like Madero and Aquiles Cerdan join together and really start to conceive that an armed revolution would be the only way to displace Porfirio and end the Porfirio... what's it called? El Porfiriato, which was the name given to this time that the President Porfirio Diaz had been in power. And the great thing about this museum is that it's so good at establishing the context in which Porfirio Diaz sowed the seeds of his own collapse, in that in extending his power throughout Mexico, he built over 19 million kilometers of railway line and also helped electrify towns like Pueblo, which got electric lighting in 1880. And enabling that, it extended the lines of communication between the revolutionaries who had been agitating for change from 1908. But after the flashpoints of the failed election campaign in July of 1910 and the decision by Madero and Aquiles Cerdan to mount an armed revolution, the reason why the museum is hosted here in this house is because this was the flashpoint where the arms finally were fired for the first time. And so a group of young revolutionaries took lodging in this house. They gathered their armaments, and on the 18th, 19th and 20th of December, essentially there was a massacre here on behalf of the troops of Porfirio Diaz. And so they stormed the house and they killed all these young men. And they also killed our main man, Aquiles Cerdan, who was hiding in a hidden trapdoor underneath the kitchen floor downstairs. And it means that this house does have some very creepy rooms, like a sitting room that's just adjacent to where I am now. That's got a mirror that's just laced with bullet holes and plenty of seats and stuff that are just torn to shreds. And that spark is what then ignited the entire country to take up arms against Porfirio Diaz. So what happened after the 18th of November 1910 and the death of Aquiles Cerdan? Well, it just speaks to the amount of discontent in Mexico that the first wave of the revolution was so quick, in that by May of the next year, 1911, I've always got to trip over this name, Porfirio Diaz had resigned, and he was then replaced by our mate Madero in an election. However, the peaceful period was not too long, because then just a few years later, on the 18th of February 1913, old mate Madero and his vice president were both assassinated, and there was a military coup thanks to Victoriano Huerta. And that military coup then led to several decades of instability within Mexican politics, so much so that in the late 1940s and early 50s, Fidel Castro and his brother Raul could use Mexico as their training ground for their plans of a later Cuban revolution. And so I love it how all the history of this area and this city of Puebla is mixed in with everything we've learned back in Cuba. Lunchtime entertainment as we enjoy our Mexican-style burgers. $2.50, that's 30 pesos for this giant burger with avocado, onion, schnitzel, jalapenos, followed by two kinds of cheese, a stringy Mexican cheese, and then this really salty halloumi pate. And it's just amazing. And the restaurant here is buzzing with an amazing cross-section of Puebla. There's people sat next to me with, I think, 6 pluses, and then there's whole families that are here on a Saturday outing. It's just incredible. Such is the ease that you can travel Mexico, that you can have noon in Puebla and then travel all the way to hear the 4:30 chimes in Mexico City. I'm on the 37th floor of the Torre Latinoamericano, which is Mexico City's highest tower. Built in 1956, it is 205 meters tall with 45 floors. And I'm looking at the most wonderful sunset, and the slight amount of pollution that there is here today is casting these great beams of sunlight across the city, which is in a natural basin, and that's why Mexico City is renowned for its pollution, because there is mountains on every single side. And this city was founded on the lake bed of Lake Texcoco, And in the middle of that lake, there was a Aztec city called Tex-Mixtitan, and that is what the basis of Mexico City was founded on today. And it didn't take them long to misuse the lake's resources, and it was entirely dried by the 1830s. But now it's home to 18.5 million people, which is quite the sight to see from its most central and core point of the city. And when you're looking at the tower itself, it does look like the plans to the Empire State Building have been given to a 5-year-old who's then constructed a striped monstrosity in Minecraft. It's also got a great view to the south of the Plaza of the Constitution, which I was in earlier today listening to the church bells with the gigantic cathedral. And that's the plaza which the opening scene of James Bond's Spectre was filmed in. And I'm sure the stories of Mexico City are true. There surely must be parts of this city that are dangerous to be in, but this afternoon that I've spent here has been utterly pleasant with gorgeous weather, and it is just essentially a modern city trying to get by. I thought as long as we're in Mexico City, we might as well visit the only other place that has hosted the Olympic Games in Latin America. And so I came all the way across town to the Olympic site here in Mexico City. And it's very actively used. It's known as the Ciudad Deportiva, the sports city here in Mexico. And it's being so well used. It's definitely not like the Beijing Olympic site. Anyway, the Olympics here were in 1968, and Mexico was the first and so far the only Latin American country to host the Olympics. And as an Olympics, it had a number of outstanding moments, we'll say. Like it was where Fosbury did his flop in the high jump. It was where Bob Bowman did that 8.9 metre long jump, given the altitude of 2,240 metres here. That stood for well over a couple of decades, all the way through to 1991. However, it was marred by politics as well, and it was where our poor Australian Peter Norman was third on the podium when the Americans did their Black Power salute. And it was also preceded by a rather brutal massacre here in Mexico City. It's called the it's a tongue twister, this one. All these Aztec words get me freaking messed up. It's the Tlatelolco massacre. And it was took place in the National University of Mexico, where the actual Olympic Stadium is. It was a bit too far for me to go, that's why I came to the swimming pool. But they were protesting on the 2nd of October against the oppressive policies of the then President Gustavo Díaz Ordaz, and they are demanding autonomy for the university, which they have subsequently given. It's now called the National Autonomous University of Mexico. And old mate Gustavo Díaz Ordaz sent in the military, and there were between 200 and 300 students and passers-by killed in the massacre on the eve of the Olympics. And so, yeah, this is where we're starting, and we're headed down to Rio. This will be the second time that South America or Latin America has hosted the Olympic Games. And the great thing about this Olympic site is that it's still so used by the Mexican people. There are kids running around everywhere. And right now, I've gone through the secret passages underneath the Olympic site with my guide, Francisco, and we're now in what was used for basketball and volleyball during the 1968 Olympics. It's called Juan de Barrera, who is a Mexican historical figure that I'm sure did something.
Me llamo Agustín Zaragoza Reina, obtuve medalla de bronce en Juegos Olímpicos, México 68, que fuimos 4 que logramos destacar aquí en las Olimpiadas, y posteriormente seguimos continuando con otro ciclo más completo y volvimos a competir centroamericanos, panamericanos y Olimpiada.
Muy bien. ¿Y usted se fue a un otro Olimpiada?
Fuimos al centroamericano, medalla de oro, tuvimos la gracia de poder vencer a Cuba y obtuve medalla de oro en primer lugar en los Juegos Centroamericanos.
Sí, porque Cuba estaba muy buena en
Muy,
los Juegos de
fuerte,
México.
muy
Sí.
fuerte, y desde luego que siempre ha sido bastante sobresaliente en todos los eventos que está presente Cuba. Cuba ha sido pues una potencia. Y afortunadamente aquí en México, estos 4 individuos que estuvimos en México 68, también estuvimos destacando contra Cuba. Y pues eran bastante fuertes, pero aquí pudimos darles lo suyo.
Muy bien.
Deportivamente.
Pues, un placer conocerte.
Muchas gracias. Ok, hasta luego.
Gracias. That's indeed an interview with an Olympic champion, Augustin Zaragoza Reina, who came third in the middleweight competition in the 1968 Mexico City Games, still training young boxers in the guts of that Olympic site. And he was born on the 18th of August 1941, and I know this because I've interviewed someone with their very own Wikipedia page. Just awesome. The metro is how Mexico City moves. Over 9 million people ride it daily. And Metro tells an interesting story about disability in Mexico, which was highly unexpected. It's cheap price. You can ride it for the whole day for 5 pesos, which is between 30 and 40 cents. Acts as a magnet to the disabled that cannot support themselves. So they jump on and they stalk the trains all day begging for money. That's the blind, the mentally disabled, and disturbingly even a man with a distended liver. And on the flip side of that, each station does have a symbol that is attributed only to it, so that the illiterate and the disabled can get around the metro system without needing to read. But it does speak to the success of socialised medicine in Cuba, in that disability was not such a issue and didn't affect your quality of life as much as it does here in Mexico.
Es un excelente libro que lleva por título.
Says an awful lot about Mexico that the bloke selling books on the metro, selling recipe books for diabetics. There is sugar in everything here, even in the fucking milk. And part of Mexico's diabetes problem stems from Coke, which has such popularity here that it even has Coca-Cola retail shops, sells in gigantic bottles of 3.5 litres for like $2 a pop. It even extends to cherry Coke still being available, which I've never tried. So here goes. And it's good at the start, but it's got an awful, awful aftertaste. Ugh. We're in Mexico's governmental palace, and this is the old Parliament House part of Mexico. It's a glorious room full of school children and red and a lot of red velvet. Though I just passed the most important documents of Mexico, its constitution and its Act of Independence, which took place on the 28th of September in 1821. And while we're at the governmental palace, it's worth noting there's a fabulous photography exhibition here. And there's a fact here that I think links back to our mate Francisco Madero back at the Revolution Museum in Puebla. And when he became president, Francisco Madero became the first head of state to fly in an aeroplane. On the 30th of November 1911, he was up in the air for 12 whole minutes with his pilot, George Diot. And it may be due to Mexico's revolutionary history, but its governmental palace looks more like a fortress. It's got huge stone arches everywhere and a very strong military presence. And I don't know, one of the interesting things is that all their magazine clips are made of clear perspex so you can see the live ammunition inside. Guess you'd have to have this sort of security in a country that's had such a turbulent history such as Mexico. And outside the gates of the now closed governmental palace is a protest. These are social security workers who only received 12 days of their 50 days redundancy payment when they were sacked. There's over 1,500 workers that lost their jobs over the last couple of years as a cost-cutting measure, and the government refuses to pay 38 days of their redundancy payments. And the protesters tell me that this has been a campaign of over a year and a half, and they're still fighting. Thought when I spotted it on the map I'd had to come. So right now I'm in the Tequila and Mezcal Museum in Ciudad de Mexico, and the difference between tequila and mezcal is the same difference between your normal beers and your craft beers. Tequila is made solely these days on a largely industrial scale with what's known as the blue agave plant. The agave is a kind of cactus that grows here in the Mexican desert, whereas mezcal is like it's got regional specifications, and it changes from area to area, and they use different kinds of agave plant. And mezcal is also known mostly in the West because that's the one with the worm at the bottom of it. But it's a pretty amazing museum, and you get a free shot at the end of it, so that's worthwhile. It's almost as if this museum knows all of the Mexican stereotypes and has brought them all to one place. So now I'm looking at a very brief history of mariachi. And mariachi is a combination of pre-Columbian indigenous Mexican music with the fandango that the Spanish brought with them. And most interestingly, during the 20th century, after our revolution with our characters, Madero and the bloke who got shot up in his house that I can't remember, post-revolutionary nationalism turned mariachi into the symbol of Mexico, and it was popularized throughout radio and film and all sorts of things. And it's that it was during that time that classic Mexican uniform that you associate with mariachi called El Charro. That's the one with the laces down the side of the pants and the big hats. That's when that became a big deal, and mariachi has survived to this day with the very same form. That's the Fountain of the Coyotes, and we're in Coyocan. I took a risk, so I never wanted to be out at night in Mexico City for obvious reasons. It's not the safest city in the world, but then I met these two amazing women while I was taking my free shot in the Tequila Museum, and they were like, why don't you come to Coyocan? It's really cool. And of course it is. I've rode the zero emissions bus here to Coyocan, and it is the new town of Mexico City. There is a completely different vibe here. People are on rainbow roller skates, there's tandem bicycles, and there's even a famous coffee shop. So I've come back to Newtown because I had unfinished business. By Newtown, I mean Mexico City's Coyocan. It's the bohemian little corner of Mexico City, and it's really cool. Despite it raining today, I've braved the weather just to come back for the coffee because Café El Jarocho is it's been here since 1953, and it's the most famous cafe in all of Mexico City. And everyone wanders around this small part of Mexico City with one of their polystyrene cups in their hands. And I must say, it's good coffee. I've had a cappuccino. It cost me $1.50 for the best coffee in town. And I'm also having a glazed donut, which I can say, without a doubt, is the best I've tried in Mexico City. And I've tried an awful lot of donuts. There are a ton of bakeries here in Mexico, and it's a really surprising aspect. But I have tried to find Mexico's best donut, and I think here in El Jarocho, or Café El Jarocho, better said, they've taken the cake. So, wandering around Coyocan's main market, I have noted that all is not well in the Mexican hipster's paradise. I saw apple crates being used for carrying apples and not as decoration. That, combined with the polystyrene cups, at the world famous coffee shop. It's got a long way to go before it's the organic hipster's dream, but still, it is a developing country, and I assume it has a developing hipster culture as well. So give it a chance. And the only way to distance yourself from Coyocan is to take the zero emissions bus line. It's a trolley bus that runs the north-south axis of Mexico City, and it's freaking slow. But that brings to an end my little Mexican city stay, and I must say it is so worth it coming here. You get such a great feel for what a modern Mexico can be. And why wouldn't you visit it? I mean, 18.6% of the entire Mexico population lives here in Ciudad de Mexico, so you'd be missing a huge chunk of Mexico if you didn't come. But ahead of me now is 17 hours in a bus all the way over to the Pacific coast, and so it's pretty much on par with taking public transport to the beach in Sydney. So I should be pretty good. The lapping of the mighty Pacific Ocean, and it's crazy to think, but it was 2 months ago then I last recorded this ocean all the way back in Sydney. And I'm standing on Playa Carrizalillo. It's just north of Puerto Escondido, and I'm about to get wet. And I just swam the length of this 200-meter beach with an enormous green turtle. It was about 1 meter long, and it was just cruising, and me and a friend were just swimming by along with it, and it was so comfortable with us being there. And just a great experience. First time I've been in the Pacific Ocean on this side for a long while. So my 2 nights in Puerto Escondido have turned into 5, I believe, because the next guest and I landed on our feet with a hostel full of the most fabulous people. So I'll let her speak for herself.
I'm Isa, and I'm from Sweden, Stockholm. And I've been in Mexico for almost 2 months now. I've been away from Sweden for 2 months, but in Mexico for 1 month.
And like, where's your trip been so far? What sort of things have you done?
I went to Los Angeles to visit some family, and then I went to Mexico City, where I also have family. And I feel like this is an interview.
No, it loosens up
right,
over time.
Right.
People don't like the red light, even though you can't see it from where we are now.
I just feel it.
This is like the first time that we've done this on location. We're at La Punta, in Puerto Escondido. Yeah. So you did a homestay in Oaxaca.
Yeah, but first we were in Mexico City.
All right.
Yeah. So I went to Mexico City to visit some other family, and one of my cousins got married there. So the brother of my grandma moved there, and he has kids, and these kids have kids, and one of my second cousins got married.
And so, describe the wedding to me. Was it like a full-on Catholic one? Like what sort of thing?
No, actually it was Jewish.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, my cousin or second cousin married a Jewish guy, so she had to convert. Is that a word in English?
Yeah.
Convert to Jewish some weeks or days before. So first it was the civil wedding, where they had to. So many people had to sign so many papers. So I'm happy we got some champagne.
How many pieces of paper is your name on?
I didn't have to sign any, but yeah. I stood there waiting with my glass of champagne. I'm happy I had that glass of champagne though. And then it was this Jewish ceremony. This was before my Spanish course, so I didn't like Hebrew and Spanish.
Yeah, they're not
for me.
the closest of languages.
No, but I mean, I didn't understand many of the words, and depending on what language they were speaking in. But she had to drink water from a glass which he held. I think that was
the
Jewish.
Standout part of the ceremony, because I managed to back in, where was I? Probably Merida. like we eavesdropped on a wedding, and it was the most beautiful perfume thing. Like they had like this huge rosary bead around both their shoulders, and it was just like it was so pretty. But what was the like decorations like at the Mexican Jewish wedding?
I think this big wedding was a bit of a compromise between them and their parents. They wanted a small wedding on the beach, but their parents wanted to invite all of their friends and working colleagues and everything. So the decorations were a bit hippie-ish. I think that was the compromise part.
Okay. What, like someone brought a heap of sand into the synagogue or something?
Oh, I wish. They had some plants inside. There was 800 guests, so it was huge. So we were in a big hacienda, or the ceremony was in a hacienda, and the party and dinner was in kind of a big party tent. So in the hacienda there were like candles in glasses almost hanging down from the roof. It was beautiful, like so hundreds of them. And big dream catchers in the tent. Yeah, it was very pretty.
Yeah, nice. So from there you went to do a homestay in Oaxaca.
Yeah, exactly.
What were your reasons for doing that?
I wanted to travel in South America after I finished high school just half a year ago. So I wanted to do something more than just work and study. So I planned to go to Chile, I think, because I've heard so many bad things about Mexico. But then I spoke to my cousins, and they told me like that was wrong, and it was wrong.
It's so wrong.
Totally wrong. So they advised me to go to Merida or Oaxaca, and I chose Oaxaca because my cousin told me it was better, and she's more my age than her father.
So
yes.
What was the day-to-day life like when you were living in Oaxaca? I mean, you would have done Spanish classes.
Yeah, I woke up and had breakfast with a lot of fruits. I don't think that's very Mexican, but I really enjoyed it. Fresh fruits are so rare in Sweden
like
right
papayas
now.
and
Yeah, I don't really like papaya though, but melons and mango and watermelon, banana, apple. Yeah.
And the Oaxaca cheese.
Yeah, I love
for some reason you mentioned this like the other day, and that stands out to me because I miss cheese so much, and whenever someone mentions cheese.
Do you like quesillo?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I ate that like every day, and queso, but I like quesillo.
But what's it like? Is that the salty stuff?
No, this is the mozzarella one.
It's the super stringy stuff that you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's
like white and bland and.
Yeah, like you pull it apart.
Pull it apart. Yeah. But so what was the city of Oaxaca like? Because I'm not going to visit there. I missed it. I drove through it.
It was very pretty, very colonial, and very, very like artsy. Many art galleries, and like every people we met were like, if we started speaking to them and like asked what are you doing, what do you work with? Everyone was like a director or musician or artist or like filmmaker.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So did that, I mean, so you just out of high school, but did that help, like, I don't know, what are your plans for the future? Like,
you mean for studying?
For studying or whatever? Have you decided to become a small film producer off the back of Oaxaca?
Oh, I wish. No, I'm actually planning on becoming a teacher. But I also feel like I've been in school all my life. I was working as a substitute teacher last autumn, so I felt like I should just come away and get away and do something else, like not being in school too much. I went to this language course for a month, but and it's not like a real school.
Yeah, but how's your Spanish then? And who do you practice it with?
It is, as I told you about my English, like I'm not comfy with speaking English with other Swedish people around, and it's kind of the same with Spanish, but with English speaking people. When people have the patience, for me, I'm sufficient. I can. Yeah, I think it's all right. Not too good. I wish I can get some practice when I'm here.
Yeah. So now that you're traveling alone for the first time, like,
Yeah.
how are you finding hostel life and everything? We landed in a pretty good spot, I
Yeah, we
think.
did. I love that place. Actually, that was my first hostel thing. I've been staying at family and in this homestay before, but I really like hostel life. I think this is
out
like,
of the ordinary. So
yeah,
we're
this
staying
is-
at like Tower Bridge here in Puerto Escondido, and it's like out of town. But the thing that makes it special, I think, is that it's got this core group of volunteers that outnumber the paying guests like 3 to 1.
the two of us and Patrick are the only paying guests.
Yeah, and so it's got a really nice community feel, and everyone just does everything together. So like, we went out together on Friday night, and it's just so nice. It's
Yeah, I
so
love it.
inclusive.
Yeah, I think I'll get disappointed on my next hostel experience.
Yeah. The best thing about, like, I think the thing about this hostel is everyone will like put down their devices and phones and just have a chat or play cards or do something like that,
Yeah.
make dinner like we did the other night. But you need to find a hostel where the Wi-Fi cuts out every now and again, so people are forced to sort of sit around and chat.
You're right.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Have you booked any hostel for San Cristobal?
No, I have not. So we need to ask around and see.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay at the one that my friend is staying at.
Okay, well I might just join up with you guys because
Sure.
I only plan on staying 2 nights there
Yeah, me too.
before going into Guatemala. I know, another.
You have to give me some tips on what to do in Guatemala. I might
So
go
how
there.
much longer do you have on your trip then?
I'm not sure. I left Sweden the 7th of January, which is 2 months ago tomorrow. I'm planning on going back before summer because Swedish summer is pretty nice.
Okay.
The only time I want to be home. And also my cousin and very close friend graduates the 10th of June, so that is a good date to be home at.
Yeah.
I might. Now my plan is to go home between late April and early June.
Nice. So while I've got a Swede, the first I've had on the podcast, please tell me about the Swedish graduation ceremony because
have you seen pictures?
I've heard
yeah.
one retelling, not yours, but it's
Who
the
was
most
it?
insane tradition I've ever heard of. So you graduate.
Yeah. So we on the morning we I can talk about mine. So we met at my friend's house. All of my class. We have like classes which we have every subject with. So all my class met at this place and we had a champagne breakfast.
Yeah.
And then we went to school, had like some ceremonies in the common areas in school. And then at midday, we have like these white hats on. Have you seen them? I
No,
can show you
or are
on
they
Facebook
like
now.
little sailor hats or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sailor hats. Some people write their names on them, and they're so expensive. It's become a business. Like they cost like $150, I guess.
Whoa.
It's crazy. I actually took my dad's old
You
one.
t-
Yeah.
So yours wasn't white, yours was old, dusty, covered yellow.
Yeah, actually beer covered.
Beer
Yeah.
covered hat. Nice.
So and then we just like run out of the school and on the what do you call it? Courtyard?
Pavement, yeah.
Pavement. The parents and relatives and friends are standing with. This is the strange
This
part.
is the strange part for me, yeah.
I haven't even thought about it as strange. With big pictures like my size,
Yeah, like giant portraits.
giant portraits with all these students as kids.
Baby photo.
I think that's cute.
It is cute. I mean, it must be so embarrassing for your friends because you might not have seen pictures of them as babies, and then here their family are standing with this just creature on a page.
Actually, I saw one person the year before I graduated, and her family had got. I think she was a model, and they had got like a picture of her as a model, like
Like a baby
posing
model?
one. No, like 2 years ago.
Oh, right.
And
okay.
that was even more embarrassing. Like,
Okay.
You want it to be cute and a bit like.
So what was
jokey,
your
yeah.
baby photo like then?
Actually, I didn't want to know before, so
Okay.
so I just searched
The
for
surprise.
a photo. Yeah, it is from our my relatives' little summer house in southern part of Sweden when I'm balancing at a fence, I guess.
Oh, wandering along a fence.
Yeah, I look very concentrated. I can show you some pictures.
So strange. Yeah, no, we did everything like that, but mostly just the champagne breakfast and the walking out of school and going.
Walking or running?
I can't remember, you know. I think, yeah, no, it was a pretty low-key event because you have so many ends to school. You have, like, the day you get your results, you get invited back for a morning tea and whatever. And so that's a little more formal and awkward. But we had, like, a week of celebrations when we were just in our last week. We had different dress-ups every day.
Oh, really?
And so, like, boys dressed in the girls' uniforms and vice versa. And then we did lads and laddesses and pretended we were from Sydney's western suburbs. So North Shore. So embarrassing when you think about it. But
yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Oh, well, but that was my part of the world. Alrighty. Okay, well, thank you
then, sorry.
Go for it. Say before.
After that, this is the strangest part of the
of course.
celebration.
I got caught up on the baby photos.
We go on trucks. We bought, like, I think by class we're 30 people. We bought, like, could it be 2,200, maybe 500 beers?
Right.
Yeah, could be
30 people, 500 beers.
Yeah, just for like without any alcohol, like 2% alcohol.
All right,
just for, what do you call this?
Oh, spraying it on.
Spraying it on each other. For like, we're on this truck, on the back of the truck, going around the city, just spraying this beer on each other.
Oh, so that's why your dad's hat smells of beer.
Yeah.
Those 35-year-old old
right.
2% beer.
Yeah, actually, that would be great in Sweden in a good day in July or August, but this was in early June, so I was freezing, like driving around town, totally wet of beer.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you for being our first Swedish guest and doing our first on-location podcast.
Yeah, you should bring this tradition.
Oh, but how was your surfing lessons? That we were here at La Punta, and as I've been speaking, I've been watching this has had like fucking 3 endings, this podcast. But I'm watching all the surfers go down. It's a fantastic and very quick break. But how was your surfing class that you had here for like 5 days?
They were great. I went Tuesday to Friday, first surfing ever, and I was so proud the first day when I managed to stand up on the board, but then on the second day I realized that that's not the hard part. The hard part is to like catch the waves and paddle fast enough, and I got so tired, so sore, like ribs and hip bones and knees, and also my arms were so sore, like the muscles, but it was a lot of fun.
She came into the hostel like with her arms floppy by her sides and was just like dead in a hammock.
You gave me the cereals, I can't even reach them.
Yeah, alrighty. Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast. This is going to be the final ending to the podcast, so cheers.
Thank you for
having me. Cheers. That's it for another week. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy what you hear, make sure you like us on Facebook. That's where I'm putting all the photos that accompany this podcast up. And if you've got any suggestions or queries, write to me at cubitario@gmail.com. And make sure if you enjoy what you're hearing or enjoying what you're seeing, leave a review on iTunes, as that will really help us out. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.